Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Alexis Batulis with Columbus, and today we have a special partner presentation for you on managing exempt customer experiences within Microsoft Dynamics. We started the call by putting everyone on mute, so if you have any questions during today's presentation, please use the question box on the upper right-hand side of the screen to ask any questions that may come up. At the end, we'll have time for a Q&A with our presenter. Finally, we are recording the session and we'll be sending a link of the recording to all attendees within an hour after this webcast. Now I'm excited to introduce your presenter today, Maria Tringali. Maria has been with Avalara for nearly 6 years, specializing the entire time in manufacturing and distribution tax compliance. She has worked closely with many of our integration partners, such as Microsoft, Sage, Infor, Epicor, plus many e-commerce solutions and ERPs. Maria is currently a member of the U.S. Sales Enablement Team, providing training, education, and support for prospective clients and partners, focusing on the benefits of the Cert Capture software and services. So without further ado, Maria, I'll hand it over to you.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. It's great to meet you, and thanks for that intro. I really appreciate it. And so happy to be here to chat with you today. I'm kind of nerdy about the exempt customer experience and the collection management of exemption certificates. She said I've been working with manufacturers for many years, manufacturers and distributors, and so that's kind of become a specialist here in that. And that's what we get to talk about today. So first I want to talk to you a little bit before we dive into our agenda. Just let me put my mouse back over here. There we go. So we do have a link for you. If you haven't seen this yet, we do have a link for you to see what changes have been made out there in the tax compliance landscape since the COVID outbreak. We have a fantastic resource hub that you can share, and it includes things like, are the states allowing delayed payments and that sort of thing, any changes that have been made. So we've got a great resource for you there, so jot that down if you want to go take a look at that after the webinar. It's basically avalara.com/COVID-19, and we update it regularly as anything has changed out there. So I want to put that out there, make sure you have that resource. Avalara loves to provide resources out to our partners and customers and answer any questions that you might have. So that's a good one to go to. So with that, let's dive into our agenda for today. So what things we're going to talk about today, we have about 45 minutes, and we're going to talk about how B2B businesses have been affected by the Wayfair ruling. Remind you what the Wayfair ruling is. Hopefully you're familiar with it, but we'll do a quick reminder. And what challenges, really, my main focus today is what challenges are presented for our sales tax exempt customers, your customers. What is this? How does this affect them? And how does all of this affect you and your employees? And why a really flawless experience for your exempt customers matters in this current environment, and how we can help, how Avalara can help, and how automating that can help. And how do you identify if your business needs help with something like this? So we do have a chat available if you want to, you can pose questions and we'll address those questions at the end. So if you do have questions going along and I haven't answered them yet, please do put them in the chat anytime. This is super casual, it's just me. So happy to answer those when we get towards the end. So let's talk first about how B2B businesses are affected by the Wayfair ruling. So reminder of Wayfair is states now are requiring registration if you've hit certain thresholds. Those can be a revenue threshold or a transaction threshold. And that has hit my customers, our manufacturers and distributors, really hard. And the reason why is because the definition of exempt in this world, in our world, is the intended use of that product sold is going to render it exempt. So agriculture, resale, manufacturing, how that product is actually going to be used after it's purchased. That's the use case of an exemption. And then there's also the organization may be exempt by nature. So it's an entity-based reason for exemption. It could be a not-for-profit, a charity, the federal government, a hospital. A lot of hospitals are not-for-profit. So depending what industry in. So there's two reasons we're talking about exempt customers today, or two exempt reasons, excuse me, we're talking about today. And the main thing I want to point out is that in both these cases, the buyer is not paying tax, is choosing not to pay tax because of either how that product is being used or the status of that business. But it is the seller's responsibility to prove why you didn't charge them tax. So you have a joint responsibility, but unfortunately the seller is generally the one audited first. So it's our responsibility as manufacturers and distributors to prove why we're not charging tax on that order. And I just want to point out that this is not to be confused with products being exempt. So all types of products can be exempt. So tree trimming in California can be exempt with with taxable with lights, exempt if it's labor only. Those types of candy bars, bagels, different types of food products being exempt from tax. We're not talking about product exemptions. We're talking about when a customer or the use of that product makes your customer exempt today. That's often a confusing thing. There's three ways we use the word exempt. I literally think we should have three different words, but we don't. It's all exempt in our business. So back to our Wayfair conversation. So in June of 2018, when that Supreme Court ruling came through and decided that states were able to we're going to have to register if they had more sales in the state, and they could be exempt. They might not be exempt if they had number of actual orders or revenue that hit those thresholds. They were going to have to register. Unfortunately for us, this hit the manufacturing and distribution and other businesses, B2B businesses, really hard. Traditionally, these businesses had registered only in where they had a warehouse or where their home office was, and it was sort of the beauty of being the middleman was you didn't have to worry about tax compliance because you had not established nexus in most states. That has completely changed. It's almost 2 years ago now. It's completely changed, and now our businesses, manufacturing distributors, are having to register in many, many states, and so all that boils down to, that means we have to collect more exemption certificates. So if the reason for your customers being exempt is still use-based or entity-based, we need to go and collect documentation from customers we have never had to collect them from before. And that's really the core of our talk today. So some states, I just want to point out the red text here, most states do include exempt sales in that threshold. There are a few who are not counting some of exempt sales, some resale. You have to really go and read the fine print for each state, and Avalara can help you figure that out. But I will point out most states are including exempt sales in that threshold. Essentially, they want their revenue one way or another. So you may have heard of the Streamlined Sales Tax program, and this is a way that we can help. So Avalara is a Streamlined Sales Tax provider, and what Streamlined Sales Tax is, 24 states got together and basically vetted content, meaning how we tax and how we handle taxability and how we do tax determination of several vendors. And Avalara passed the test, and they all agree that items are taxed the same way. They agreed to accept a blanket exemption certificate for all these states. And they agree that we can be an agent for the state and actually file the returns, report to the state, and then the bonus is we would actually handle sales tax audits in those states. So there are several qualifiers for this, which your company may qualify. So if you're in the position where you have either had to register in multiple new states and you've already done that, or you haven't gotten to the place where you've checked these thresholds and have registered or registered in all states or some states yet, if you haven't done this yet, this is a fantastic program that can help you. The reason why we're bringing it up on this call is if you are able to take advantage of having Avalara being your registered agent and provide all these free services to you as an agent of the state, we do have to have those exemption certificates on our side. We are vetting for you when that tax determination is made. Avalara is going to vet that you have a certificate on file for that customer at the time of sale. If you don't, it's going to go ahead and calculate the right amount of tax. So that's why this program is centered around this conversation today, because it would be a requirement if you do qualify for the free services. And if anybody has more questions on SST, that's all I'm going to say about that today. If you have more questions about SST, more than happy to address those after this call or put you in touch with somebody who can. It's a fantastic program. It's a lot of free services, and our manufacturers, distributors, and B2B customers have really been able to take advantage of it. I see so many customers every day that have to register in 24, 30, 36 new states they've never registered in before, and this program helps them immensely with free registrations, free calculations, helps you determine where you might be establishing a threshold moving forward or passing a threshold moving forward, et cetera. It's a fantastic program. So moving on to, so given those two things, so given the fact that Wayfair has required you to register and you may qualify for SST, you're going to need to collect more certificates. And so what we really want to focus on is, what does that customer experience look like? Sure, we collect them now. Most of my customers tell me, yeah, we collect them when we sign up a customer and we put them in a drawer. I literally was talking to a woman the other day, not kidding. She goes, I literally put them in a box under my desk. That's where they're stored, which of course made me giggle. But everybody has some kind of process like that. You're in business, you're a B2B provider. You got to have a process or you wouldn't be in business. So everyone collects them at some point and either scans them in, maybe attaches them to their ERP, and maybe has them in a PDF format in a shared drive somewhere. So everyone's got something like that. What we haven't thought of, though, is what does that customer experience look like? So if you have to register in 17 new states because of these new rules, how are you going to go collect 100, 1,000 more certificates? What does that experience look like for your staff, and what does that experience look like for the customer? So these are a couple of examples here. I've got a million of them, literally, like a comedian would say, I've got a million of them. But this is just two real life case study, just random people that we talked to. So as a manufacturer in New York, they're 99% exempt because they're all resale. They were not collecting and charging any tax. They still won't, but they had to register in a bunch of new states. So previously they had 75 exemption documents on file. Now they need to have 1,175. So how are they going to go reach out to 1,000 customers and collect those new documents? Not only that, but how do they know what they're collecting? How do they know for the state of Missouri that they have the right document on file? How do they make that experience easy? Another example, just regular example from daily customers I talked to, a national wholesaler, they were doing a lot of drop shipment, and from Wayfair, they grew from just physical nexus in New York to registering and filing in most US states. So they had 500 certificates on file for the state of New York and a few extras. They were collecting them from New Jersey and a couple other states. But when it was all said and done and they counted up all of their customers in all the states, they were going to need 5,000 new documents. So what does that look like for the customer? How the heck are we gonna do that? So that's what we're talking about with Avalara and Cert Capture, is that customer experience. So let's talk a little bit about what is the challenge for that end user customer, for your buyer. So, or for your business, actually, for your business, I'm sorry. I know that you care about customer experience, and audit is important to you, but really managing customers well is very important to you. Everyone wants to keep their customers, and I can speak from Avalara's perspective. We want to take very good care of our customers, and when we ask them to provide additional documentation, so you're going to go out to customers and ask them to provide a document that you didn't require yesterday, but now because of economic nexus, you do require. Same customer, in order for you to continue to not charging them tax, you are going to require documentation. So just reaching out and asking that customer for a document can be painful to them. Typically, the person doing the buying might not be the person providing the exemption certificate. They're not a tax professional. They may or may not know what they need to provide you. They might say, why are you asking me this now? You haven't charged me tax in the past 20 years I've been working with you. And if you do send out a bill, this is our biggest pain, right? If you do send out an invoice with tax on it, and then they go, wait, we're exempt. and then they submit the exemption certificate later, and then you have to go back and do a credit and rebill, and then your customer says, but you can't even bill me properly. You know I'm a reseller. Why are you charging me tax? And back to the beginning, the burden is on you to provide that documentation. So this can be a cranky thing for customers. And then yourselves or your frontline employees who are trying to collect those certificates delicately from those very valued customers have a bigger job to do. They have to validate those certificates. They have to make sure they're accurate. They have to make sure they're on file, and nobody enjoys those darn credits and rebills. That's just extra work for everybody. And I think that manufacturers didn't mind doing them when it was only in maybe their home state, but if you multiply that over now maybe all the states or 17 new states that you could get invoices wrong or invoice customers with tax when there shouldn't be tax on them, that's a lot of work. That's a lot more credits and rebills and a lot more burden on your accounting team. So experience matters here for both yourself and for your customers. So when you're a customer and you have to provide this new paperwork, you're requiring them, that can cause delays in setting up the account. If it's a new customer, if you don't have the right paperwork, you can't finish setting up the account. It can cause delays in their order processing and delivery. That's going to make them cranky. Again, the incorrect billing. It's extra steps for them. They have to stop what they're doing when they're normally used to just placing an order with you, stop the process, go find the paperwork. They may not know what to provide. They become frustrated. They might even shop the competition. And then the experience we talked about the experience internally for credits and rebills and that sort of thing. So these are these challenge with our customers I lost my train of thought there. So it's a lot of work for your team as well to receive those frustrations from customers. This is something that I hear a lot from my exempt customers, that they say, I don't have a tax problem, I don't charge it, I don't need to calculate tax. So they tend to look the other way at a tax compliance solution. But the fact is, in our world, collecting that documentation is as important or more important than it is for calculating tax. If you're a highly exempt business, you only calculate tax on, say, 10%, 25%, even 50% of your business, you typically don't feel like you have a tax problem. By being here today, you're obviously dealing with exempt customers and wondering how you can improve that process. But we hear this a lot from manufacturers and distributors. Well, I don't have a tax problem. So we need to think a little bigger, because we're not talking about tax rates. This is a very important part. And as we talked about, customers don't like to provide documentation. And you do have to prove, you have to have that document on file on the day of that sale in order to comply with the law. And now you have laws in many more states than you had before. The challenge with collecting them and proving why you didn't owe them is there's a lot of proving why you didn't charge tax. There's a lot of information on those exemption certificates that could be right, wrong, incomplete. And so the challenge for your team is knowing what they're looking like, what those certificates should look like. What does that exemption certificate look like from the state of Missouri? What does it look like from New Jersey? I have to drop what I'm doing and figure out what paperwork I'm supposed to collect and why is that customer exempt. So maintaining these documents, getting the right one in the first place and maintaining them is a big burden on your staff, but it is your responsibility to have the right documentation on file. This is how crazy it can be. This is just an example of what different forms can look like. You just don't know what you're looking at, and you don't know whether you have the right form. Your staff is obviously not CPAs or tax specialists. Like, I'm not a tax specialist, but I know how crazy this can be. So having the right form on file is confusing. Understanding the expirations and the tracking of these. So as you move into new states, you won't know what the rules are. How am I going to file these? Where am I going to keep them? And how do I know when they expire? Florida's expire every year. Illinois, the resale is 3 years, but manufacturing is 5 years. What kind of platform do you have to try to keep up with these as you have to renew them? Like, Arizona's are only good for 1 year. That's a lot of work on your part. And then any state that says never expires, I never believe them. And then all of the information on those forms. How do you know it's the right one for the right state? How do you know it's the right number? Is it signed? How do you know it's the right reason? All of those things. We're expecting our staff to understand everything and make sure that these documents are making our company compliant. And if they're not, this can create huge risk for the company. I always, actually, I always kind of laugh. I'll go to this slide, but I always throw my niece Chloe, who just turned 18, under the bus. A lot of my customers that I work with say, oh, I'll just have a summer intern come in. I'll have my niece Chloe come in and call all of our customers or email all of our customers and get these documents in. Well, I can tell you, my niece Chloe would have no idea what she's looking at. This needs to be done professionally. Having these wrong definitely creates risk for your business. So what we see on your side, to kind of summarize from the business side of collecting these documents, is often there's multi-department confusion. So salespeople might collect the document and send it into the corporate office, or we have a storeroom where someone is picking something up, or a warehouse, and they don't necessarily have access to that document. They have to call up to accounting to see if we have the document on file, et cetera. So it causes multi-department communication confusion, limited access, of course, lack of tax expertise that we talked about, more work for the collections team if billing is being delayed or the invoice wasn't right, potential lost revenue, delayed revenue, and of course, crabby customers and potentially lost business. So it's really important that your business get this right and make that experience as smooth as possible for your internal employees and your customers. Now this, especially in the Microsoft world, I hear this a lot. Well, my ERP can do this. So I want to talk about that for a second. The ERP can store a document and possibly even track an expiration date. There are some challenges with that. And also, I hear a lot of people say, we have a document management platform that can do that. So we've put these into a doc track or a document management platform. What we are talking about is not a document management platform. This is a platform that actually communicates directly with the customer and validates the forms as they come in. When you're talking about a document management, that's a one-dimensional piece of paper. It's not dynamic. It's a piece of paper, and you might be able to track an expiration date, excuse me. What we're talking about is a platform that interacts with your customers and turns that one-dimensional piece of paper into pixels or digital form. So while you can have a piece of paper that you can look at, how do you know that it's right? How do you know that it's current? How do you know it's the right one? And how do you track that customer? And moreover, some people provide multi-state documents. That's really difficult to attach to an ERP. Often you can only flag a customer as taxable or exempt for every state. You can't be specific and drill down to a state-by-state level or even a project level, a direct pay permit, that sort of thing. An ERP cannot manage those sorts of things. That is more of a one-dimensional, I have a piece of paper that shows up for a customer. It's quite a bit different than managing documents over many, many states and different requirements. So let's talk a little bit about what that could look like. So a cloud-based system that streamlines, simplifies the sales tax exemption certificate process. And that's what we're talking about today. So if you look at our sales tax suite, I'm assuming if you work with Columbus, you're probably familiar with Avatax, which is our tax calculation engine. So really what our platform does is before it gets to that tax calculation, I like to refer to it as a tax determination instead of calculation. So the whole process in the B2B world starts with that customer. We have to collect some documentation from that customer before we can place an order. So literally the way the Avalara platform works is it helps you collect those documents, the right document from the customer, and have that on file before you create that final invoice. So you are way more proactive than you have been in the past. So when we make the tax determination call or get tax call from your platform, the first thing we do is look for exempt documentation from that customer. That is literally, well, first we validate the address. So getting ahead of myself, first we validate the address. We do that selfishly because we need to make sure, we need to be able to do the tax determination and possibly a tax calculation at that exact address. As soon as we identify the address, then we check for exempt documentation. So once that we've made that determination, if there is an exemption certificate on file at that time for that invoice, we will not return a tax rate to your invoice. We're going to validate that certificate. Yep, there's one there, and we're going to return $0 to your invoice. If there is not documentation on file to exempt that customer at the time for that reason, then we're going to proceed with the tax calculation that you're probably familiar with. So I like to call the whole process tax determination instead of tax calculation. So we're validating whether there's a certificate on file. If there's not, then we proceed with the tax calculation for every item on your invoice. And then, of course, all of that information is what is compiled on the returns form. So we complete all those forms for you with all of your sales documentation for your review, and then we'll remit them to the government. And so I want to just pause here. One of the things that I think is often misunderstood is people only want to send us over the taxable orders. Well, that doesn't really make sense. It seems to make sense if you just want to calculate tax, but from a tax compliance perspective, that is not the right way to look at it. And the reason is your risk is really in those missing documents. If you can't validate that you have a certificate on file at the time of a sale, and the reason why, again, we're going back to proving why you didn't, if you can't validate in a sales tax audit scenario that you had that documentation on file at the time of the sale, that auditor is going to want the full amount of tax from that invoice from you. So if that was a $1,000 order and it was 10% tax, similar to Washington, then you would owe them $100. If you just miscalculated a tax rate, our tax rate is something like 10 point, I don't remember what it is now, 10.5, and say you had it at 10%, that is a tiny amount of money that you owe the state for a tiny amount of your total sales, typically for a B2B seller. So your risk is on the exempt customer side. If you cannot validate that you prove that you had those on file in time of an audit, that's where your risk is, and that's where your costs can be. And that can literally put businesses out of business. The other thing is, in order for us to do your returns, so say your exposure has increased out to 15, 17 more states, you've got a lot more returns to file. They may be very low dollar amounts that you owe the state because you're highly exempt, but you still have to fill out all those forms. You still have to learn each state's rules. Because they're online forms now, they can change all the fields every month if they want to. So you still will have the burden of filling out those returns. And we cannot complete those returns for you if we do not have all of your sales coming through, taxable or not. We have to have all the reported income to fulfill all of those, the forms and all the requirements on those forms that the different states require. So it is super important that you have all of your sales flowing through your ERP and other platforms into the AvaTax admin console in order for us to make that tax determination. So Cert Capture is the platform we've been talking about. So Cert Capture is the exemption certificate platform. That's, as I said, the first part of the actual tax determination process. So it's going to make you more accurate, reduce risk, as we've talked about. It's going to streamline that whole management of collecting, validating what is a tax ID number, is it the right form, or is it my mother's birth certificate? It's going to check all of those things for you. And it works with any platform. It's a cloud-based application. It works with any platform. So it is built into some of the Microsoft products where you can actually visually see the certificates. You can also connect it to your shopping cart, which we're going to talk about in a second. So it doesn't matter the type of exemption, because it's cloud-based, anybody, so that person down in the warehouse or a salesperson out in the field can check any time to see if there's a valid document on file or collect one right there. We handle any type of exemption. So we talked about in a little bit in the beginning the reasons for being exempt. So manufacturing, government, agriculture, doesn't matter. Any type of exemption you can imagine, our system handles it. We have a library of the exemption certificates on file, so you don't have to figure out what form is applicable to who and when. We take all that burden off of you. So let's talk about the, get this to show the, without the animation. I don't think it's showing the animation. Sorry, let me go back there a second. So let's talk about the e-commerce experience. So one of the things I love about this platform right now is that you can build the exempt customer purchase right into your shopping cart now. So Cert Capture has this capability built in. It does not cost any extra. So in the shopping cart, you can actually ask at the time of sale if they would like that purchase to be exempt. And that little button, if they click that there, is going to launch an application called Cert Express. And that's where we have taken all of the exemption certificates out there in the US and turned them into digital forms. And it will launch this application right at the point of purchase. The customer can either submit a PDF of that exemption certificate, or they can fill it out digitally, which is what you're seeing on the screen there, and submit it right at the time of sale. And you can have that set to auto approve. And so that sale would not have tax charged to it. If I can submit it right there. So it makes it super easy for your customers to submit the certificates at the time of sale, and super easy for your staff to know that you have it on file and it was valid at the time of purchase. And of course, super easy to show in a audit scenario. And one more step further, you can also take this experience into the My Account experience. So if your customers, if you have this experience or you would like to create this experience for your B2B customers, we can help you set up in the My Account experience a tax exempt certificate area where they can actually view the certificates that they have on file. They can renew those that are expired. They can add states, say they've now established nexus of new states, just like you might be experienced. They can add certificates that they want to provide to you right here from the My Account experience, which means when you set up new accounts, which is how we normally collect them, you can also collect them in a digital way using Cert Express at the time you set up their account, instead of asking them, taking that extra step and asking them to fax in a PDF or email it and you don't know what you're looking at and it takes a while. You can do it right in that My Account setup process for a new customer as well as for an ongoing customer. This is super sweet. Nobody else has this, and this is very, very, very popular. Most of the customers I talk to are looking to beef up that B2B online purchase experience. And we can go into this, of course, a little further if you're interested, but I just want to let you know that it's there. And then if you have physical stores or warehouses where you need to collect those certificates or validate them at the time of sale, we do allow you the capability to collect those on the spot. Any device, your phone, an iPad that has Wi-Fi can access this platform and can quickly look up to see if you have a document on file, or you can collect one right on the spot there. It can collect it from them and have it applied to that sale. So super, super amazing capabilities that never actually aren't even out there in the world. So it helps your customers have a much better experience. So Cert Capture, we have over 4,000 customers. Most everybody that I talk to in the Sage, Microsoft, Infor, all the people who use manufacturing ERPs, they love this program. There's nothing really like it out there, and it just doesn't make sense to try to manage this stuff yourself in a post-Wayfair world. So just a quick example of some customers that are using our platform. Oops. And again, so why it's different is we allow you to customize that experience for your customer. They can submit the document to you over the counter, through the web, through the shopping cart experience. And again, we turn that one-dimensional piece of paper into a digital format where we validate it, we map it to your customer, We streamline that intake process. And then it also keeps in touch with your customers. So it has the capability it has a built-in email campaign and direct mail campaign tool where we can keep in constant touch with your customers. So my team can help you collect those certificates from the beginning. Remember my example where the New York manufacturer needed to collect about 5,000 new certificates. My team will actually help you. We use the platform and we can build an email campaign around your customers and the reason for collecting them. You can customize those and we can actually run that campaign and answer questions and such for your customers. So it allows you to really customize that experience to your business as well as to your customers. And that's called managed services. So our managed services team is based in our Durham office. So they're a team of subject matter experts. And what they do is they help you, they meet with you and they help you create a campaign they can validate documents that you have on file right now. So if you have paper or PDFs and you want us to take a look at those and see if they're valid. And we also create campaigns. So we will send the bulk requests out for new documents via email or postal mail, either for all of your customers, if you want to throw away the paper you have and do a start fresh campaign, or if you want us to take a look at what you have and just collect what's missing and new. Anyway, we will customize this project to you. The best part is that red text there is when we do a campaign for you, we do all of the pre and post phone support for you. So what happens when you email out 1,000 or 5,000 of your customers? You are going to get questions, and your team likely does not have the sales tax expertise to answer questions about what form is required, when do you need it for all states, whatever questions they have, my team is going to field those. And I think that is the most valuable service that team offers. This is, in a lot of cases, customers that I work with are also implementing or upgrading a new ERP. They have to register in multiple states. They have a lot of other things going on. And so managing a project like this definitely was not on the to-do list. So to summarize that, we make it really easy for your customers to submit the right form and quickly. We eliminate that negative customer experience and we make it super easy for your staff to handle this project and apply those certificates to invoices immediately. A lot of customers that I talk to or businesses that I talk to tell me that, oh, well, we'll just collect the new one next time the customer places an order. But what kind of experience is that going to provide? It's not going to be the best experience of, oh, wait, I can't process your order because I have to collect documentation from you first. And that kind of like screech puts the halt on that order until they provide you with documentation. And so what we want to do to make that smoother is be proactive. We want, before they place their next order, for them to submit you with the right paperwork, you validate it, and you have it on file so that next purchase goes super smooth and quickly. And then, of course, this is really all about mitigating the risk. So let's talk quickly about your ERP platform. So we can communicate with the ERP platform. So Cert Capture is a web-based application. It is built into several of the Microsoft platforms already. And basically what that means is you can enter a customer into your ERP and that will communicate over to Cert Capture and provide that customer information to Cert Capture, and then vice versa. When the customer submits a certificate into the Cert Capture platform via the platforms I showed you via Cert Express, it'll actually transfer an image of that document over to your ERP. So it definitely links with your accounting platform and makes that employee experience super smooth because they have everything they need right at their fingertips there in the ERP. If you happen to use something else in addition to a Microsoft platform that is not integrated with Cert Capture, you can easily build that integration. So it's very customizable to your situation, and all of the platforms that you use. So quickly, I'll just wrap things up. Identifying, these are things that we look for when we look for a customer, a business that is a good fit for adding a platform like this. Mergers, acquisitions, multiple corporate entities, frustrating upkeep. The biggest thing is really the economic nexus. Drop shipping can now cause way more nexus than it used to. Expansion of B2B online. So when you think about your business, think about those goals for the future. Think about things you want to make easier. Think about customer experiences and really evaluate whether something like this would be a good fit for your business. And we can certainly help you evaluate that too. These are just a couple questions of what to ask myself. Do I want to expand my B2B experience? What's the quality of documents I have now? And remember, as I wrap things up here, remember that it is definitely about proving why you didn't charge tax. It is not we don't charge tax, which is what we've traditionally got. And poor processes for collecting those certificates create negative customer experiences. And I'll just wrap it up with that there. So do we have any comments or questions?
All right. Hi, Maria. So we do have a couple questions here. Can
Great.
Avalara help us figure out where we have established nexus?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So one of the first things we do when we talk with our prospective customers, the first thing we like to do is do a review of where you are registered and where you might need to get registered and help you determine that. We can take a look at the economic nexus rules. So those thresholds that we talked about at the beginning, the dollar amount and number of invoice thresholds. And we can take that a step further and also look at nexus you may have established because of physical nexus or drop shipping or shared marketing or anything. So yeah, we are definitely able to do that for you and with you.
All right, great. And we have one more question here. What would my customer see?
Ah, that's a really good question. So the customers see that, let me pull up an example of that. The customers would see the Cert Express platform that you saw on a slide. So I'm going to show you my a sample email. So, yep. So the sample email. So this is something like what a customer might see. So if we sent them an email out, you would customize this. This is company one. It's just my demo company. But what it does is because we have the customer information either through the shopping cart or through when we set up Cert Capture, we uploaded a list of your customers. So we have customer information here. So we're going to customize that email experience. So in that email that they get, it's going to launch that application Cert Express, which I showed you in that slide. So it'll launch an experience very similar to this. It'll launch the application Cert Express. So in this case, I knew that this business wanted to be exempt in California and Washington. So if they want to add more states, oh, we're also exempt in the state of Nevada or Texas, they can add a certificate there. And of course, they can create this document here. So it's going to ask them to select the reason why they want to be exempt. And I'm just going to select resale here to make our lives easier. So that causes this application to basically serve up the document, the exact document. So this is the resale certificate for the state of California. So remember I told you that we had taken all the documents out there and turned them into digital forms. So this is that general, most up-to-date resale certificate for the state of California. So your customer can look at this and go, oh, great, I have that form. I'm either going to import it right here and as a PDF, I can copy import that, or they can proceed with just filling out all of these fields, which were the blank form fields that you saw on that form that I just pulled up. And I won't go through the whole thing, but you get the idea. They will fill out the blank fields. They literally sign this online and hit submit, and it goes right into your system. So what it does is puts a little more of the burden on the customer to provide the right documentation at on their hands. They get to be the ones to actually provide it to you, and you can be confident that you got the right document into the system without you having to be the one to validate it. So the system is going to do that for you. Anything else?
All right, great. If there are no additional questions here, I'd like to thank you all for attending today's presentation. Thank you so much, Maria, for giving us a great overview of exempt customer experiences. Thanks, everyone.